It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Howdy, y'all. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. No, I'm not in Texas. Just thought a different intro would be a nice change of pace. Sorry for the delay in getting this show out. It's been almost, or about 2 weeks since my last episode. I really want to put out a show every week, but sometimes I get very busy and interested in other things, so my apologies. For the next couple of months, the shows may be a little more hit and miss than they usually are. I have a couple of events that I'm going to. As an example, the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference is October 4th through 6th right here in Chicago. And I often hear people saying, there's never a conference anywhere near the Midwest or not in Chicago. Well, here it is, folks. It's in Chicago. It's coming up October 4th through 6th. Later in October, 16th through the 20th, is the Center for Inquiries conference called CSI-Con, C-S-I-Con, in Las Vegas, October 16th through 20th. And I think here, let me look at my calendar. Oh, this is good radio. Yes, just stalling. Yes. On the 17th, the conference really gets into full swing on the 17th and has a bunch of workshops during the day. But after the workshops are over, just barely after the workshops are over, we are going to meet at the conference check-in desk or near the conference check-in desk. And when I say we, it's listeners, friends of the show, friends of mine, or anybody that wants to tag along. We're going to go on a little adventure. Again, that's at 4:15. The workshops all end at 4. Hopefully they don't go over too much. But at 4:15, we will meet at the conference check-in area, reception, not the hotel reception, but for the conference event itself, wherever you checked in and got your name badge, at 4:15 on October 17th. That's Thursday at 4:15. We will collectively wait there until 4:30. And if you're not there at 4:30, you'll have to catch up to us, which, of course, you're welcome to do. But at 4:30, we're going to leave because we have a little window here where we've got to get some stuff done. At 4:30, we will leave. We'll go outside. We're going to go south across Flamingo Road. There's a sky sidewalk. We'll go across that. And we're going to go over to an area called the Grand Bazaar Shops. It's actually all located right in front of the Bally's Casino. And we're going to go over to eat at Wahlburger. It's a nice place. They can serve a bunch of us if a bunch of us show up. All kinds of different food. Order what you want, and we'll just hang out on a whole bunch of tables if there's a whole bunch of us in the area between the shops, if there's too many of us, and we'll just have a nice time hanging out and getting something to eat. Once you're done eating, right across the path, right across the hallway, right across the courtyard, the open area, I mean, it's about 20 feet away, maybe 20 feet away, is the fuel bar, like you put in your car, fuel bar. And it's a kind of a fun place to drink because they throw the bottles like the movie Cocktail. They spin the bottles, catch them behind their back, all kinds of stuff, and make drinks. So we'll have some food at Wahlburger. We'll go to the fuel bar, have some fun there, have a drink, 2 if you are brave. And when we get done with that, we're going to go back over to the Flamingo Casino, and hopefully 6:30, 6:45, because at 7 p.m., the opening reception of the conference officially starts. So you have this gap where you're probably going to eat anyway. So just join us at 4:15, no later than 4:30. We'll walk across to the Grand Bazaar Shops. We'll go to Wahlburger, eat, we'll get a drink at the fuel bar, and then we'll come back. It's going to be great fun. So I hope you can join us for that. Some other fun things that I'm doing is I've kind of picked back up the sport of disc golf long time ago. I used to play very regularly, almost every day. When I lived in the Peoria area, Peoria, Illinois, they have like half a dozen courses. Some of them are really nice courses, would play on those, but hadn't really done it much lately. After we moved to New Lenox, went to a course or two and threw a couple baskets, and it was kind of hot and rainy, so I wasn't really into it and just came home. But when I was in Kentucky for the ARC protest, went out with a bunch of friends, and somehow, for some reason, I did really well. I was very happy because I haven't really done it much. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that last year I lost 30 pounds, and I've been exercising relatively regularly, including upper body with the Bowflex, and actually throwing the disc was a little easier. So when I got back from Kentucky, I decided that's going to be my daily exercise. Instead of walking a mile or 2 or 3, I would go spend an hour just throwing discs. There's a park just a block or 2 from me, and I go over there and I throw 30, 50, 60, sometimes even 100 discs. And I have to walk over there and throw the discs and walk back. It's a good bit of exercise. And just recently went with my nephew, who's I think is 20, and played a round. And he is really amazing. Of course, it's easy to be amazing when you're 20. But I was only 2 shots behind him on the course up to the 14th hole. And then I fell apart and I started hitting trees. So I ended up -5 compared to him. But considering the fact that I've never seen that course before, and it was the first time I played that course, I'm really happy at the age of 52 that I came so close to someone who is 20 and really good at the sport. So great excitement there. I've got a few new discs I've ordered, so I'm going to start practicing with some new discs. He was fascinated with the discs that I had in my bag because some of my disc golf discs are older than he is. So I'm going to order some new ones and keep practicing and have some fun with that. In the show today, we've got a lot going on. We're going to start a new segment. What did I say? That was asset allocation. And I'll explain it during that segment, so I don't want to waste too much time here talking about it. But we're going to talk about asset allocation. Of course, I have another Investing Skeptically segment today on cancer insurance, on the pros and cons of cancer insurance. And so you can listen to that, see how that something like that kind of works. And one of the problems with insurance, life insurance, and particularly with annuities is almost every individual contract is unique. You're making and signing a unique contract with that insurance company, so you really have to read the details or just not get it. Cancer insurance, asset allocation, part 1. I might do several more parts for that. And then a really fun interview with Aron Ra, and we're going to talk about electric cars, hybrid cars, and we're going to talk about genetics, DNA, science, evolution, phylogeny. I think that's the word, phylogeny. And I think you're going to have a heck of a good time. So sit tight, listen to all the show. And of course, if you like the show, you can go to patreon.com/Phil, and you can kick in $1 or $2 per episode. And the nice thing for you, if I skip a few weeks, you're not paying anything. That's why I set it up as per episode, not per month. I don't want anyone to think that they're contributing a couple of dollars and not getting episodes. So it's by episode. The more I make, the more you pay, but the less I make, the less you pay. So you kick in $1 if you want, kick in $20 per episode if you want, and it helps offset some of the time that I spend making the show. Of course, if you like the show, or if you called me and I was helpful and pointed you in the right direction, even though you didn't hire me, a 5-star review at iTunes or Stitcher, always helps the show. So we're going to wrap up the intro segment here and go into the actual fun stuff. I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to make a few segments on asset allocation, and this will be part 1. It's something I get asked about a lot, and I've talked about a lot, but never in a kind of a systematic way. I'll take a look at a little piece here and there. So I'm going to try for a few episodes to do this, and if you guys like it, let me know. Of course, you can email me, Phil@PolarisFinancialPlanning.com, or send me a note on Facebook. Not too good with texts or that Twitter thing. So, but if you like it or if there's some part that I missed, let me know and I can try to fit it in. And maybe having this show after show after show for 4 or 5 episodes will help it form better for some people and make more sense. So we're gonna do that asset allocation. This is part 1. And I almost forgot. I have to give a few warnings, what if, caveats, etc. First of all, if I say anything about past performance does not guarantee future results. Also, these are general ideas that one could use to guide their investing. And this is in no way specific investment advice for anyone listening to the show. You should do your own research, read up on what you need to do for your personal interests, and or hire your own financial advisor. So asset allocation. I break down assets into 4 main sections. I have the cushion, which is bonds, basically. I have the U.S. stock market, which I call the U.S. Market matrix, and I'll go into that more at some other part. I have real estate. You could do other, what they call real assets or commodities in that section. I don't really like anything else other than real estate in that category, so that's what I stick to. And then I have international. So those are the 4 categories. Basically, bonds, U.S. stock, a little bit in real estate, and international. And the first, mostest, importantest part is to decide how much volatility can you handle, how much gain do you theoretically want to achieve. So bonds versus everything else. So I'm going to do cushion versus not cushion first. So if you are 14 years or more away from retirement, I keep very little cushion, almost no cushion, or 2 or 3%, 5% if you want to get a little more conservative. Not every advisor is going to agree on this. Matter of fact, a lot of them will not agree with me on this. And the reason for this is that stocks make more money in the long run. And every time there's been a correction, so far, the stock market has completely recovered in 7 years or less. In 2008, it went down 37%. 2009, it went up 32%. You're still behind. But it went up for the next few years, and you're back to even. Even the dot-com bubble in 2000, if you were in the entire stock market, not just tech stocks or not just dot-com stocks, by 7 years, you'd made all your money back. Unfortunately, a year or so later, it fell again. But even the infamous Great Depression in 1929, you had made all your money back if you kept everything in for 7 years. It was less than 7 years because the dividends were huge, and I'm assuming you reinvested those. All right, so the basic point is stocks make the most in the long run, but can fall the farthest and sometimes really big in a very short period of time. And for me, short period of time is a couple of years. So the way I look at it is different. So I don't do market timing, which is adjustments daily, hourly, by the minute, or even by the week or the month, sometimes by the year. I like to think that I don't do market timing. I do market-based adjustments because sometimes there's things that you can utilize to make some adjustments. Anyway, all stock, best in the long run. You could lose a ton. You can also make a ton. But if you're getting closer to retirement, maybe starting at 15 years out, 14 years out, if you're feeling more aggressive, or particularly if the market has gone down for a couple of years, you can start at 10 or 12 years out. If you're really, really aggressive, you start 8 years before retirement. But the thing you definitely do not want to do is have 100% of your money in stocks 1 year out from your retirement. Because if the stock market, U.S. and international, around the world, wherever you happen to live or whatever you happen to be investing in, if all of that goes bad, now, for the short term, for a couple of years, but if you lose 20, 30, 40, 50% in the stock market and then have to start pulling money out because you're in retirement, you can seriously fuck yourself. So that's why you need to have some conservative stuff when you get close to or in retirement. And of course, the big question is how much in the cushion. So I'm going to talk about at retirement. And again, if the percentage you have in bonds, I'm going to start with 40%. If that's your target, to have 40% in bonds at retirement, my current recommendation is that you have that in place 4 to 5 years before retirement, and you build it slowly over maybe say like 10 years. So if you're completely ready by 4 years before retirement, 14 years from retirement, you should start by having 4% at least in bonds, and you can increase that by 4 percentage points, 4% of your overall portfolio until you're fully loaded and ready. And that way, when you go into retirement, if the stock market drops, it doesn't change your plans. The stock market goes up, yay, you just made more money. So the default position I'll tell people, and again, this is not specific investment advice to any one of you that is listening. It's just some ideas to think about. But at full retirement, 60% stock, 40% bonds. That is a safe idea for me to throw out to start with. If you want to be more conservative, you can have 50 or 60 or 70% bonds, but you're going to make less per year over time. So you would have to look at how much do you have? How much do you want to take out? How old are you when you're retiring? Because if you're retiring really early, making a very small percentage over a long period of time and then taking too much money out could be a problem. So that's why it's hard to give exact numbers on any of this stuff unless you're talking to someone specifically about your situation. My dad, at his death at the age of 81, was 90% in the stock market. Now, he had retired in his mid-60s, I think, 67, 65, something like that, was 90% stock. He was always 90% stock. Never had more than 10% bonds. That is probably not the right number for you, but it can be done. I've even had people, clients and other people that I've known that stay basically 100% stock all the time into retirement. What makes that doable is if you have $1 million and you're only taking out about $20,000 a year or 2%, you're basically spending the dividends. And it doesn't matter if the stock market goes up or down because dividends don't change as much as the stock price. That's a whole nother topic. So you can do that. You can take a whole lot of risk if you're taking out a very, very small amount of money, like 2%. So starting with 40% bond and 60% stock. So that's the first decision you have to make. What is that ratio of bonds versus stocks? In future segments, I'll dig into all these different parts, but that's the biggest decision. That's the first decision you've got to make. Everything else falls from that. So we have the bonds, and we can break those down in multiple different ways. Again, future segment. All of the stocks, then, let's say it's 60% of your portfolio. Great. Now I'm going to refer to stocks as a whole different pie. For making a pie chart in my mind here, a whole different pie. How do you break that apart? For me, I look at that, and let's say you have $1 million in the stock part of your portfolio. Right now, I like 20-25% of that to be in international. For me, that varies over time. After the 2008 market crash, for me, the international went below 10%. And the reason for that was because I'm not as comfortable in knowing exactly what international stocks are going to do. I'm not even that comfortable knowing exactly what U.S. stocks are going to do. But I did perceive the 2008 drop as an overcorrection. It went down 37% in the calendar year. And if you pick the peak in 2007 and you pick the absolute bottom in 2009, you could even argue that it went down 50% in a year and a half. So I saw that as going down too far, and I wanted more of the investments in the U.S. to take advantage of, hopefully, fingers crossed, the rebound, which then did come. So it worked out really well. I've had also in the past where I've had 30, 35, maybe even 40% of money in international stock. And right now, like I said, I'm 20, pushing towards 25%. And part of that is because international stocks have done poorly over the last 5 and even 10 years compared to the United States. So that makes it a little more attractive to me. The other thing is that as the U.S. stocks, particularly large cap stocks, do really, really well, I want to kind of diversify away from them. I've made a lot of money. If you've invested in the S&P 500 or large cap growth stocks, you've made a lot of money. I want to pocket some of that, and some of that could go in the cushion if you're in retirement, or some of it can go in other areas so that if you have all of your money in large cap growth in the United States and something changes, you'll get hit the hardest if it turns against that segment of the market. So of all the stock part, about 20-25% international, no more than 10% of the stock part in real estate. I particularly like the Vanguard REIT fund because it has REITs. Again, that's a whole other show topic, and actual real estate investments. So it's not 100% stock anymore. It's going to be mostly stock, but it moves up and down in ways and at times slightly different than the U.S. stock market and slightly different than the international. And so even if you're in retirement, it's an opportunity where if it suddenly goes up a whole bunch, like it has in the last 12 months, you could take some money out of there and spend that for retirement. So 5 at the lowest, maybe 10 absolutely at the highest of your stocks, not of the whole portfolio, but of your stocks. And then, of course, the rest, whatever that is going to be in the U.S. So if you want a higher U.S. based and maybe you do 15% international, which is below my suggestion, and 5% REIT, which is the bottom end of my suggestion, that's 20%, then 80% of the $1 million that you have in stocks will be in U.S. stocks. So again, the first decision is how much is safe stuff like bonds. I'll go with 40%. If you're really aggressive, that number can be smaller. If you want to be really conservative, that number can be bigger. 40% cushion, 60% stock, and then the stocks within stocks only, about 20 to 25% international, 5 to 10% in real estate, and then the rest in the U.S. market. And I was hoping this was going to be like a 5-minute discussion, but I'm looking at 13 minutes now. So that's part 1 of asset allocation. And in future segments, I will dig into the specific details and even give you the fund symbol, they call it. It's usually a 5-letter designation of what that mutual fund is. So hope you enjoyed that. And hang on, we're going to do some more stuff.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
If you support the Catholic Church, isn't that like the same thing as being an R. Kelly fan?
This Investing Skeptically segment is about cancer insurance. Sure, you have regular insurance, health insurance. You might have Medicare, Medicaid, or Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or many other types of insurance. But this company wants you to buy a supplemental insurance for cancer. And I'd hate to say the name of this company is Mutual of Omaha, so I'm just going to skip that. And we're just going to talk about something they sent one of the show listeners, and they photocopied it, or I guess scanned it in and sent it to me. It's a nice little package, and it has some questions, and it has a lot of numbers about how awful your expenses could be. For example, female breast cancer, you could be out $268,000. Prostate cancer, $174,000. And a whole bunch of others talking about how this could ruin you and bankrupt you, et cetera, et cetera. Then it has, the FAQs, frequently asked questions. Would I benefit from more insurance? Absolutely. Of course you would. It's not like we're selling it. And I love this one here. If I'm insured and get cancer, will my premium be increased? No, you'll never be singled out for a rate increase. Now, I like that singled out part. Why can't they just say, no, you'll never have a rate increase? They go on. The premiums for this policy are intended to remain level for as long as you own your coverage. Rate changes will only occur if changes for everyone with the same policy, form, and type of coverage as yours. So, if they're not making enough money on this specific product, they can voluntarily, on their own, without consulting you, change the rates. But it's not going to be just you. They're going to fuck everybody equally. So it's fair. And then, of course, they get into a little bit of detail of all the things they are going to cover. Has 14 different costs that they're going to cover. Hospital room, drugs and medications, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, surgery, doctor visits, follow-up doctor visits, anesthesia, blood and blood plasma, hospice care, ambulance service, x-rays, home health care, skilled nursing, and preventative screening costs. So all of this gives you the idea. I think one could easily say that cancer is expensive, very, very expensive. You may not have enough protection. And for only $10 a month, I think this is a month. I don't see anything different. For only now I need to know, is this monthly or not? I'm going to assume it's monthly. So for only $10 a month or $20 for your whole family, you can get all this covered. Well, it doesn't cover all of that. It can't for $10 a month, $20 a month. So let me break down some of these things. And after you go through all of this and the nice letter and the fear tactics, you've only got 30 days to respond. You could lose everything, yada, yada, yada. Then there's these little disclosures, these little details that explain some of this. So, for example, hospital confinement. That's an interesting word, confinement. Hospital stay. They'll pay $80 for a day and $160 if you're in an intensive care unit. $80. 1 day in a hospital, depending on where you are, could be $5,000 to $15,000. They're going to voluntarily pay $80 to you. Congratulations. Here's $80. It's not going to help much. I mean, it is $80. I mean, you're only paying $10 or $20 a month. So $80 is not out of line, but if you thought it was going to cover a 5-day stay or a 10-day stay at $5,000 a day, you're mistaken. They're going to give you $80. This chemotherapy thing, they're going to pay $70 per treatment, up to 20 treatments. If your chemotherapy is only 7 treatments, they're going to give you $490. And that limits to $1,400. $1,500 for surgery. Okay. Anyone ever gone to surgery for $1,500? I'm sure that's 20 or 30 grand, 50 grand. Let's see what other fun stuff do they have here. Ambulance, $1,000 on the ambulance service. Taking an ambulance could cost you anywhere from $500 to $2,500, depending on where you are. And they're going to give you $1,000. Oh, no, wait. They're only going to give you $100 per trip. Up to 10 trips, because we all take multiple trips in ambulances. So there's $100 that you can get. Checkups by a physician, $50. That's almost half, third, a quarter, depending on what type of doctor you're seeing. X-rays says $1,000 of coverage, but it's only $50 per procedure. So you can only get one per day. So they're going to give you $50 if you get an X-ray. And if you go and get an X-ray on another day, they'll give you another $50. So it's going to be really hard to collect all of that. And it just goes on like that these benefits are going to be small. $50, $10, $100. And you're going to pay $10 or $20 a month. One would imagine, one would hope if you're the insurance company, for years and years and years and years. And they pocket all this money. And eventually, if you remember you have this policy, if you're heirs, remember that you had this policy, because if you have cancer, you could end up going in the hospital like my mom did, and a few weeks later, you're dead. You're not thinking about this. You got other priorities to worry about. So if someone in your family finds this and goes and collects it, they're going to get very, very small amounts of money. But I think it's written, and maybe this is just me, I think it's written in a way that gives the perception that they could cover hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical bills, because it starts off with saying you could have $1 or $2, even $300,000 in medical bills. They're not going to cover that. They're going to give you a couple $100. So this whole thing is unfortunate and could be easily sent to people who are over the average age, people who are a little bit more worried about cancer. Because I can't imagine a 20-year-old being worried about this and buying this. And they're playing on your fear that you're going to get cancer, fear that you're going to go broke. They charge you this little premium and give you very little in benefit for it. So I'm unimpressed with this cancer insurance. I've never really seen cancer insurance I liked, but maybe there is something out there. I'm not saying it's impossible, but this one really kind of made me sad for what a sad and weak and pathetic world we are, that a company has to go out and nickel and dime you for 10 or 20 bucks a month to maybe someday, if you get cancer, if you survive cancer or your dependents know about this policy, to file the paperwork and go through the process to ask them back for a couple $100. Anyway, that's a little bit on cancer insurance. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship.
A lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for this award. I want you to know that no one had less to do with this award than Jesus. He didn't help me a bit. If it was up to him, Caesar Milan would be up here with that damn dog. So all I can say is, suck it, Jesus. This award is my God now.
Next up today, I have Aron Ra. How are you, sir?
Doing well, doing well.
And of course, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about phylogeny, probably Christianity, and maybe, if you'll indulge me, a little bit about the Bible and all kinds of fun stuff. But as we were getting ready for the show, we got sidetracked, and I figured, hey, my listeners kind of like when I talk about this stuff. You're looking at a new car, and you were looking at what now?
Well, my wife and I were talking about we really don't want to get another internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had buckets of money and we would, I wanted to get some sexy, crazy car. I mean, I can still admire, the Lamborghini Aventador as being such a beautiful thing. It's like a beautiful woman, that car is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I would put, as a young man, I would put posters of that car next to beautiful women on my bedroom wall, if you know what I mean.
Now, have you learned the new thing to say for internal combustion engine?
Oh, what is it? Ice.
Ice.
Yeah, but that causes some confusion these days, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. The good thing you're not in Texas. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I am in Texas.
I know.
So, yeah.
Damn.
So I don't want to use that word, but you follow what I'm saying.
So
then, where was I? I didn't want to get another internal combustion engine, and my wife likes the idea of eventually, like, getting rid of our house and everything and getting one of those little travel trailers and doing that kind of hermity thing.
Yeah.
And so she wants a truck that'll pull it, but if she wants electric truck, well, then now we got very limited options. There are some promising things from a couple of companies, but we were recently looking at Tesla's truck, which the numbers they're projecting.
You were looking.
I'm sorry, what?
You were looking at the truck. You mean you're looking at promotional specs of the truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
The numbers that they're reporting for what this thing should be and what it should be able to do are kind of off the charts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're reporting some numbers that are difficult to believe. That it would be something along the lines of 800 horsepower, that it would do, that it would be comparable to their Model S in acceleration because of that 800 horsepower and instant torque on all-wheel drive, that the vehicle without a payload would be able to accelerate every bit as fast as the Model S, if not faster. So they're talking about maybe 2 seconds in 0 to 60. And then they also talk about 500 miles on a single charge, which, again, is impressive, especially since 300 is, about just over 300 is about the best they can do right now. So that would be impressive. And the price is another thing that's really surprising. So Tesla's trying to do this for $50,000, and while that is still an expensive car, really, I have a Chevy Suburban now, and I bought my Suburban when it was 10 years old, 10 years ago.
Right.
I bought this thing for $10,000.
Nice.
Because if I had bought a new one back then, 10 years ago, if I bought a brand new Chevy Suburban, it would have cost more than my house.
Yeah.
When they say cowboy Cadillac, they mean it. It's just if I wanted to get a version which is what I wanted the 9-passenger version. I wanted the 3 bench seats so that you can have seat belts for 9 people, because that's the way we usually travel, is we put people in and do road trips. So I wanted the passenger capacity. We had a big family, and we always needed room for luggage and all that kind of thing.
Well, I've had conversations in the past about the $35,000 Tesla that I guess technically now does exist, but you've got to really jump through some hoops. But a lot of people who've bought Tesla 3s have paid $45,000 or $50,000, and it's an amazing car, no doubt about it. I just had a situation where I could get my car and you got to ride in it and appreciate it until you rode the Tesla. That mine was under 30.
Oh, somebody told you that story, did they?
You told me that story, and that was when you were sober. Yeah, it was. You had it something like, Phil, I was really impressed with your car, and it had really good pickup, but the Tesla has cojones, and it does accelerate faster. And, if the truck does all the things that they say it could do, I don't even think that 60 or 65 or 70 would be a bad price for that. But,
well, as I said, if 10 years ago,
yeah, if
you bought a regular internal combustion engine Chevy Suburban and you want anything special about it, it's going to cost $100,000, which was crazy to me. Why would somebody? This is a truck for white collar people. Blue collar people, right? This is the working people.
Don't say the brown people.
I put myself in the working class. I've always been like that.
Yeah.
And I know we have a huge appreciation on vehicles that you're just going to have to spend a bunch of money. But we don't just talk about daydream stuff. My wife wants to get a travel trailer and all like that, and I don't really see that happening. But that's what she wants to do. And I find that the daydream often helps you get through the day, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah. It's like I had some friends once that sold their home and bought an RV camper to travel the world, and the joke was they're only one blown engine from being homeless.
Yeah.
But, it's all about lifestyle choices, and definitely the vehicles keep getting better. And even with my car, they've added 4 high-speed charging stations within a 30-minute drive of where I am right now in the time since I bought it in February. Yeah. So things are changing pretty fast. It's never going to be fast enough, and it's never going to be good enough. But I do know some of the Tesla Model 3s can add something crazy like 400 plus miles in an hour of charging. And my car is theoretically, 180. But
I don't know about those numbers, because from what I remember, the Tesla Model 3, either the extended or the high performance, which I think the high performance one has dual motors and full capacity, and for whatever reason, that one also has the longest range. And if I remember right, it's right around 320.
Yeah, it's still nice, but it's still one of the things that I was talking to somebody about. They asked me. I kind of come up with a clever, cheeky way to answer. Now people they will ask me, how long does it take to charge your car? And I said, almost all the times about 15 seconds. And they're like, what? I go, yeah, when I get home at the end of the day, I plug it into my garage and I go inside and have dinner.
Yeah.
And I wake up in the morning and it's full. And they're like, no, like when you go somewhere. And I go, well, I'll answer that question, but how often are you driving long distances? If it's all the time, or you're doing road sales or pharmaceutical sales rep or something like that, you might want to think about a different car. But for me,
there I understand exactly what you mean. For like, if you have a Model 3, for example,
yeah,
and as long as you're not doing a road trip, like, you will never need to know where there's another charger outside of your house,
right? Because the only reason I stop at them in Chicagoland is because I wanted to test it out and see if it worked and get the right cards for each of the suppliers, because I want to make sure that when I do take a road trip, I don't have any surprises, or some ignorance stops me from being able to charge my car. But I went to Cincinnati and back, and driving from my house to Cincinnati, I added 50 minutes, and on the way back was only 40 minutes because I knew better where exactly I was going to start charge and how long it would take. And in Cincinnati, I charged overnight for free at my hotel.
Yeah.
And so, I added 45 minutes each way to my trip. But if you also schedule that with stopping and having a little food or something, it's not too bad. But if you're going to drive 500 or 600 miles a day, even in the Model 3, it's going to add some time. It's a little bit of a buzzkill, but if that's an occasional
if you're doing
thing,
it every day, I could see that. I mean, how rare is it that we have these situations? I used to work with people that would commute an hour and a half one way to get to the job. Yeah. And my only explanation to them is, you're in the wrong job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I actually did that for a while, but it was I had to walk to the train, wait for the train, ride the train for an hour and 15, walk from the train to the L, ride the L, get off the L, walk to the office.
Yeah.
And that was 2 hours. Now, the nice thing about it is most of the longest part of that was the train, and I got on at the first station and I got off at the last station on the way back, so almost my entire trip was sleeping. So even then it wasn't that bad. But 2 hour commutes are rough. Real. That'll grind you down if you're not a young person.
Yeah, now I do intend to do road trips, and one of the things that I liked about Tesla is that they have the network built into the screen. That is their the way of monitoring everything. It tells you where all the charging stations are. And when they came out with the Model S and the Model X, if you bought one of those, which I was never going to be able to afford anything like that, but if I could have, then I would have been able to enjoy the cheap thing about having free charging.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be great to have something like this, and you could drive all over the country for free?
For free. And even someone had asked me, they said, what does it cost to charge on the road? And I said, well, if I get in a bind and I'm in a hurry and I get a higher speed station, sometimes it costs almost as much as gasoline. But when I'm charging at home, it is about 2 cents a mile for the energy, and a car that gets 30 miles per gallon is around 10 cents a mile.
Is it really almost as much as gasoline?
If you use a high-speed station, then you're in a hurry, because the Electrify America, which is the predominant one that's been built between me and almost any place I'd want to go here, it's $1 to connect, and then it's 21 cents a minute, because apparently most states do not allow you to sell electricity based on the amount of electricity you sell, because then you would be an electrical distributor and you'd have to register as like an electric company.
Wow.
So the pumps, the towers, the charging locations charge by the minute. And if you can charge really fast, that you pay a slightly higher rate. But it works out to something closer to gasoline. Like I stopped and I paid $7, and I stopped again and I paid $10 or something like that. But it's comparable to an economy car, not a Suburban, mind you.
Gotcha.
Not a Suburban, but I figured.
I bought the vehicle that I did because I had the necessity. I had the large family. There was no way around that.
I get it. You got to do what you got to do, and for some people,
there's only so many vehicles that will hold that many people, and they all suck.
Yeah.
I mean, the best you can get are things like the Ford Expedition or the Chevy Suburban. That's the only thing that's actually going to carry everybody and everything that you need for that road trip.
And one of the problems with any Tesla or even the Chevy Bolt that I bought, if you live in an apartment building, how do you charge it? Where do you plug it in?
I was at an apartment yesterday. A friend of mine got a new apartment she wanted to show off, and it has EV parking stations.
80?
EV.
Wow.
No, I was saying they had special parking areas for electric vehicles where there are chargers mounted in the wall.
Very nice. Now, the other thing that you don't have so much in Texas, but up here, it's really strongly recommended that you never leave an EV car outside in the winter. And it's not just because the car gets cold, it's because the car doesn't get cold. So when it's 10 degrees outside, the battery pack in your car might be trickling out a little electricity from your house, keeping itself warm so it's ready to drive, and it attracts rodents because 40 degrees is not particularly warm, but if your option is 10 degrees and snow blowing and wind, if you can climb up inside of this car, 40 degrees is delightful.
Gotcha.
And, of course, once they do that, they start building a nest, and they have babies, and they start chewing on things. So it can be a problem with any car, but the EVs, because of that gentle warmth throughout the winter, are much more attractive to rodents. So that's a potential concern.
Well, anytime you describe something with gentle warmth, you're making it.
Absolutely. Yep. So we could probably do that all day, the EV thing, but phylogeny? Talk to us about that. Phylogeny. It's just too easy. I just got to say it fast. Phylogeny. Talk to us about it.
Very often when I'm arguing with creationists, they ask me for what is my best evidence of evolution. And the simplest answer I can give is, of course, in science, evidence is a list of things, generally. There's never just one fact that by itself is sufficient evidence to prove most things. But in this case, we have the one thing that was the one thing that seemed to make the point was the very first evidence of evolution, and that was what Carolus Linnaeus had come up with in the 1700s, in like 1735 or thereabouts. He comes up with this system of classification where he was expecting to find some kind of indication of created kinds, because he didn't think that new species could come about naturally.
Right.
So they had to be special creations by God. And so he's going to find out how many different special creation groups or kinds God made. And what he found instead was that every species he identified was part of a larger set of other species that were different from the parent sets of other species, and then the different parent sets also had parent sets that might include them but exclude another, and then when you include that other one, it's a big, even larger parent set. And this kind of imagine a set of Russian Matryoshka dolls, but instead of one doll coming out of one doll, open up every doll has 2 or 3 or 4 inside it. And that's kind of the way phylogeny works. So he was recognizing a system of parent clades or ancestral clades and daughter clades or descendant clades, and although he didn't use the word clades for that. So he comes up with these 7 ranks, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, species, and so on. And we've had to enhance that quite a bit. 30 years or so ago, they came up with, maybe 40, they came up with the idea of domains, so then I have 8 categories. But I was just doing a video on this that's going to be coming out later this evening. So far, I'm doing the systematic classification of life series, talking about the evolution of from molecules to man, so to speak, covering every cladistic classification to which we still belong. And this is episode 42, and we have covered 67 named clades so far.
And how many are there?
Well, we're getting quite close to the end. I think there's like 4 clades remaining.
I see. And where can someone find all of this stuff? Like, do you have a YouTube page, he asks knowingly?
Yes, but my ARONRA is my channel name. And eventually became my actual legal name because it just made sense. And so that's, as I said, that episode's going to be coming out later this evening. I'm really happy with this one because there's a lot of lessons in it that if you haven't seen any of this series before, if you are a creationist, if you don't understand evolution, this one episode will teach enough about it that you'll get a very good idea. It addresses some common misconceptions about how evolution works in the mind of a creationist. For example, they always want this notion of one kind turning into another fundamentally different kind, where the daughter group isn't a member of the parent group.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? They want like 2. They also want it to be on an individual basis instead of a population level.
Right.
They want to pretend that 2 parents give birth to a baby that isn't their baby somehow.
Yeah, like a dog and a cat have sex and they create a turtle.
Exactly. They want something that bizarre, which obviously nowhere does evolution teach anything remotely like that. But this is an attempt that they come up with to distort the theory so much that they can't understand it. And if they can't understand it, then of course they won't believe it. But if they do understand it, well, then they risk belief, and they can't have that.
So you have this phylogeny project. Is that only part of your YouTube channel, or is there more to it?
Well, the way I do my YouTube channel is I will do 6 videos a month, and so my patrons need to know this. Of course, the way that I support myself is on Patreon.com. It is my sole source of income and has been for 5 years. And I do not have millions of subscribers. I do not have I don't even have 1,000 patrons, so I can use all the help I can get with that. But the way that I set that up is that I have I do 6 videos a month, keep it at that number so that everybody knows what to bank on. And usually that'll be a couple of interviews. I like to do, for example, I like to find somebody that is, I think, doing something to make the world a better place, and I try to spotlight that person.
Nice.
Most recently I talked to somebody that was running the Atheist Candidates Campaign, who's trying to support non-believers in our political system. Next month I will be interviewing somebody that does international elephant conservation in Thailand and in Africa and other places. And she travels around the world, seeking for elephant benefits and protection. And I thought that was really great, so I want to focus on that. And the reason I do that is because, anybody can complain, and everybody does, but that's not getting us anywhere good. And I wanted to talk to people and not only have a suggestion for how to make things better, but are progressive enough that they're actually already working toward that end. I want to be positive. I want to focus on positive things because I think we need that now. And then those would be a couple of interviews, and I'll do a couple of edited videos. Systematic Classification of Life series is one that I've been doing for the last couple of years, and I do another one. I deal with old arguments that we've dealt with 1,000 times. It's called a Pratt list.
Ah.
Yeah, and so we'll take these arguments that keep coming up again and again and again, and just address those in a succinct way so that, when people are arguing online and they don't want to type all this mess out here, I'll just post this thing that Aron said about it, and that'll shut that shit down.
Yeah, we can always stream.
That's the idea anyway. Yeah. And then I try to do some educational stuff. My wife and I are going to renew our middle school and high school science lessons, unapologetic science, where we include things, concepts of deep time and evolution and other things that are, climate change and things that are considered dangerous by the religious right, and so often are omitted, excluded, or censored from science classes, especially in Texas and other southern states. So we're going to be doing some more of that. We were doing the series a year or two ago and laid off it for a bit, primarily because the name that was a conflict, the name that we were using was already being used by someone else. We weren't aware of that. So nobody's using unapologetic science, so we're going to go with that one.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah. And so this is the way. Also, if I do a public appearance, if I do like a speech or a debate or a presentation or lecture or whatever, then I'll put that on my channel as well.
And of course, the Patreon, which is so important because I have one myself. But yours is patreon.com/what?
ARONRA.
Aron Ra. And just in case anyone didn't know, and this was the great tip that you gave me, it's like the person that might work in a hospital and assist doctors. RN. That's their registration. It's Aron Ra. That's the good way to pronounce it. It is not Aron Ra.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You bet. Now, you're also, isn't the Phylogeny Project also a web-based thing?
Yeah, this was a huge deal for me. I've been pleading for this since I think in like 2009. Ever since I realized that there was an Arizona Tree of Life project, which was a peer-reviewed online, web-based taxonomy for the entire Tree of Life. Now, it wasn't super detailed. It was pretty, and you could look at small snippets at a time and then go to the next small snippet. But it was peer-reviewed, and I liked that. But they ran out of funding because they basically hired a bunch of PhDs to manage a website. And that, of course, they ran out something on the order of $1 million. I think they had like $400,000 or $500,000 for the first 5 years, and then another $400,000 or $500,000. Of course, they chewed all that up right away, without really I thought enough to show for it. We're just paying the salaries of too many people for a single website is what it looked like to me. And I talked to a couple of people that were working in that, and of course, we got some bits of politicking and who gets more money and all of this. But so we were trying to avoid all of that with the Phylogeny Explorer project, which is another attempt to be a peer-reviewed, web-based cladogram. But this one is one that is navigable in a very different way. You can view different portions of it. And it's not just like you look at this clade, then go to the next level of that, and the next level, and so forth. You're just clicking different web pages, and that's all that is. This one is an actual custom designed database that cost something on the order of 100,000 British pounds to put this thing together. That we can change with new information. If a genome comes back and says that something was misclassified or whatever, if for whatever reason we have to change it to correct it, we can. We can take all the daughters of a particular clade with one move, take the mother of all of them and move it to another clade, and all the daughters go with it. But it's a beautiful and easily navigable web page. The downside of it is we don't have those pretty little snippets that the old website had, where you can just click the next web page in the sequence and see that little bit. But you can do more with this than you could with that old one. And the idea is that we want to get the scientific community on it to be using it themselves. And once we have this integrated with Wikipedia, which is one of the next steps that we're going for, then Wikipedia, I've noticed when we look at Wikipedia, we would see that their cladograms, which sometimes can be very beautiful snippets, and I still use them in my videos because sometimes you just want that little portion.
Right.
And it looks good for that purpose, where it's sometimes more difficult to see because we've got all the detail in ours. Just imagine the entire tree of life in a single place. It's a lot bigger than people think.
Yeah, I've seen sometimes when they try to do the circle thing, so you can spread it out as you get farther away.
Yeah, and what a lot of people are missing on that is that they're just looking at the end species.
Yeah.
They're not realizing that there are subcategories on all of these, and we can just list the subcategories. As I was saying, the Systematic Classification of Life video series has covered 67 named clades in the human lineage. So conservatively, 71, 72, that's how many named clades we have thus far. And the more we learn, of course, the more we find about other gradations or other increments that they will then have to come up with clade names for.
So God is the greatest creator of variation?
Well, Carolus Linnaeus had a huge issue with this because he's finding he realized that he's looking at a family tree, which made no sense, especially when he didn't think that evolution was a thing. He couldn't conceive of new species arriving, so there was no way for there to be a family tree. Yet that's what he was looking at, and he couldn't explain it. And so one of the things that I found really funny about that was that he kind of lost it when he tried to classify apes, and he could not tell apes apart from people. As a matter of fact, he classified chimpanzees and orangutans as species of human.
Oh.
Yeah, Homo troglodyte and Homo nocturnus.
Weird.
Because for whatever reason he thought that orangutans were nocturnal.
Oh, I was having more trouble with the troglodyte thing. The nocturnal made kind of sense, but wrong.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't realize that we have chimpanzees, but we don't actually have chimpanzees. We have the class chimpanzee is a clade name that includes two species. Those are the troglodytes and the bonobos.
Ah. See, I learned something new.
And the troglodytes are the ones that we would typically call or traditionally call chimpanzees.
Right.
But the bonobos are quite a different thing.
Yes, they are.
They may superficially look like chimpanzees, but the biggest difference, if you ever get locked alone in a room with them, let it be the bonobo you get locked in the room with. You might be alive tomorrow.
I see. Yeah, they might have sex with you, but you'll be alive. Because a chimp might just beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, and they are really good at beating the crap out of people.
Yeah, I've seen videos showing their strength, and it's pretty stunning because
It's a funny thing.
They're in a tight
once
package.
Upon a time, that we had so many chimpanzees in movies, and everybody thought that chimpanzees are like these little 3-foot tall imps that are always so cute because they always use babies in those, don't they?
Yeah, because otherwise you get fucked up.
because you get seriously fucked up. Because those guys are super serious. Have you ever seen a naked chimp? Sometimes they have a condition where they don't have any fur. And if you ever see a chimpanzee with no fur, that'll tell you right away how out of shape you are. Because they're born with they have the myostatin mutation that we usually lack. Now, you can still get it. If you get a double copy of a particular myostatin mutation, then you will be born with twice the muscle mass and half the fat of a regular person. And there's no downside to this. You're born looking super studly.
And how did we get that?
You've got the body of a bronze god, and you didn't have to work for it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way chimpanzees are born. Now, we have lost that, and that's actually part of the encephalization. The reason that our brains got so big was that we lost some of this muscle mass in particular areas. They've identified specific mutations that minimize the amount of jaw muscles that we had in our head that would have attached to a sagittal crest, which had not allowed the encephalization of the brain. This in concert with another mutation that disabled one of our tumor suppressor genes, and so allows our brains to grow out of control, which is why we're the only animal that has this unprecedented brain size to body mass proportion, which gives us everything that makes us such geniuses.
Yes, such geniuses. At least
yes, if you want to call
people.
It that.
Yeah.
Of late, I've had a hard time understanding why we call ourselves man the wise, because we don't seem to be showing all that much evidence,
well,
to be frank.
All you got to do is go to Walmart at 2 a.m. and that'll clear your brain for a couple of days.
Yeah. Well,
the humble beast.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, the chimpanzees, when you see them without hair on those rare occasions, you realize that, dude, that guy is buff.
Nice. And
so they really don't, because the face would be noticeably different than ours, but that's most of the rest of the body is identical to ours, and the musculature is astounding.
Yeah, I just pulled up the Google naked chimp. Yeah, dude's been working out.
Seriously.
Wow.
So what they can do, what a grown chimpanzee can do, especially a troglodyte, which is slightly larger and stronger, what a troglodyte can do to a person in a second is beyond what 5 people could do to a person in a minute.
I'm seeing some of these pictures. I'm just kind of like speechless here. It's like a giant. I get the troglodyte thing now because it looks like one of those gnomes or what's the creature on top of a steeple. Anyway,
gargoyle.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a gargoyle that's been chiseled out of stone, because this dude is freaking ripped.
Exactly, the dude is a rock.
Yeah, it's
and the bonobos are the same way. I saw this picture of this bonobo, or a video of this bonobo. He's standing on his hind legs, just just down in the kind of chill. He's just swinging his arms back, just kind of grooving with the movement, But you look at his shoulders and his arms and his pecs, and you're like, dude, you're so ripped.
Yeah.
Guy was a truck.
No Bowflex necessary.
Exactly. And wouldn't you want to be born with that particular mutation? Wouldn't it be awesome?
Well, maybe. I've never really been a big fan of the philosophy there's no downside to some change, so I might have to be convinced a little bit more.
What downside could there be?
Well, I don't know. It's like medicine. What do they call it?
It's like the amount of muscle, you can build up the muscle that you have. But even as much as you bulk up, it's still the amount of muscle that you were born with, just enhanced and ripped and enlarged.
Yeah.
But chimpanzees and these people with these mutations that I'm telling about, they're simply born with twice the muscle mass to begin with.
Yeah, very, very nice.
So they look like they've been working out when they haven't been working out. Nor do they work out because they don't need to.
Now, this project, of course, you have a website now for it?
What's that?
The project has a website and it's done, or you need funding?
Project. Yeah, Phylogeny Explorer Project. I can't remember if it's .com or .org. I think it was .org. I'm going to have to Google my own site. Isn't that funny?
There you go.
Well, you'll give them them.
You assume too much.
It is .com. Yeah,
Okay.
PhylogonyExplorerProject.com. So what we're going to be doing now is we need a project manager. So I have been charged to do fundraising, which I'm going to be starting very soon as I can figure out good ways of doing that. And I am looking for advice on how to do that. We need to come up with the amount of money for a project manager to manage all this because it is beyond it's beyond what I can do. It's beyond what any of the people currently working on the project can do individually. So we do have people that have dedicated an awful lot of time, and we have there's our 3 senior administrators on this project, but it's still more than any of us can handle.
Right.
And we have dozens and dozens of data entry people as well as engineers working the computer systems and backup servers and so forth. So it's actually a lot of people think it's a web page, and it's really not. It's a database, and a chunky one. I mean, the database that we had built, the design for the way the cladogram works and the securities that go into it and the way that it functions and flows is really quite impressive. So I can't wait to get scientists to at least refer to it, and then see if I can get anybody that are interested in contributing to it. And then, as I said, once when we were putting this thing together, we would often compare our cladograms to Wikipedia and such, and we noticed that Wikipedia will have a cladogram that you can click on one side of it and you go to a different area, and then the cladograms contradict each other.
It's all got to be tied together in one unified.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing, and so there are discrepancies in taxonomy where there's not only one way of doing things, and so we can have references when there are discrepancies, and we can put in, there's information boxes when we will reference. Some other scientist says it should be this way, but we're going with whichever is the most established or the most supported, or what have you. There's going to be a dominant one in every case.
Yeah.
Probably the only time when there's an even hand between 2 options is in pterosaurs, because we don't have any surviving pterosaurs, so we don't have any genetics for them, and genome has done an awful lot with phylogeny. I mean, you can classify things by their morphology, their physical shape, all day long. And you can usually do that pretty effectively, but when we get the genome back for some things, there have been a couple of surprises. For example,
nice.
Pangolins were once thought to be closely related to aardvarks and anteaters. And the genome came back and said, no, none of these 3 are closely related at all. Aardvarks are actually closer related to elephants, and pangolins are closer related to carnivores. And anteaters are xenarthrans. So,
what is a pangolin?
A pangolin. A pangolin is a bizarre little critter that first appeared in the fossil record about 47 million years ago. Though genetically, the mitochondrial DNA tracks it back earlier than that. The division between pangolins and other things, their origin was right about or shortly after the demise of the dinosaurs. So you have this animal that had the gene turned back on for scales. Now the only scales that mammals typically have are on the tails of rats. You'll see these little scoots. That's the last remnant of scales that mammals have. But that gene got turned back on in pangolins, so their whole bodies are covered in scales. But they're not the little fingernail scoots like rats have. These are thick, butch, heavy armor scales.
It looks kind of like a armadillo kind of thing.
Kind of, but and they roll up in a ball.
Yeah, I see that
too. But they're all over Asia and Africa, and they're also one of the most trafficked animals in the world for food. They're considered a delicacy, and we are wiping them off of the planet because of people eating them.
Weird people. Again,
yeah.
People.
Which is really sad. So they have 2 mutations that significantly enhanced them. One of them is that they're covered in scales, and the other one is that they lost their teeth. They don't have any teeth, but it's okay because they eat ants. So if you're already eating ants and you're already covered in scaly armor, then you don't need the teeth either for food or defense. So hence you get a pangolin.
Very, very nice. That
was the animal, by the way, that convinced my wife when we got to discussing that she was an old Earth creationist. And when I showed her a pangolin, that was the thing that got her to think that there was crossing of divisions between reptiles and mammals from her concept.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. It's a Pangolin, pangolin. I'm going to have to look more into that. I'm afraid
They're adorable little things. They're also bipedal because they're so awkward that they have to walk on their hind legs.
I'm getting short on time, so if we can wrap up, how can people help out on this project?
Well, there's a number of ways of contacting the phylogeny-explorer-project.com. Just by going to the webpage. There is a community forum link there. People can contact the website directly that way. You can also get in touch with me, of course, through my YouTube channel or through Patreon. And probably best to go through the website directly, although, as I said, I'm looking for direction. I don't know the best way to fund this. I would love to do grants, but in order for us to get grants, we're going to have to get scientists interested in the project. So I'm going to have to get somebody that would be interested in contributing to it and making sure that we can make this peer reviewed, because that's the ultimate goal. The reason for that is I can do all the science I want, but if it isn't peer reviewed, then it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It doesn't qualify as science until there's a peer reviewed support for it. And I think that would be the minimum criteria. We have something already that would be of use to teachers and students. We'd like to get it illustrated, but we are talking about tens of thousands of species that we already have in there, and the parent clades are virtually impossible to illustrate. So this is always going to be somewhat technical. You're going to have some idea what you're talking about. We are working on the concept called breadcrumbs that we're trying to code into it so that you can put in search features. You can already search to both common names and Latin names for the thing you're looking for, but we want to be able to search from one to another so that it goes all the way back to the common ancestor and then shows you the line that leads up to the next thing.
I like it.
So that you don't get lost, because it's really easy to get lost in the tree of life because it is mammoth.
If someone wants to do volunteer work, how do they contact? On the website also?
There's a Facebook group for the Phylogeny Explorer Project Development Team.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with us, both for, and I wish I'd thought of that before, that's the best way to get in touch with us from the ground, either for fundraising or especially for people who want to get involved in the project itself.
And of course, if you happen to be a scientist listening to this, contact Aron Ra through that page or the Phylogeny Explorer page, or do you have an email?
Or the Facebook page would be a good one.
Okay, Facebook page. Have them do that. And I appreciate the updates, and it was good fun talking about electric cars. Are you going to any national or regional conferences in the coming future?
Oh, no, I'd done a little bit of international travel early this year, and I'm kind of wiped out because even when you get paid for it, it's still costly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be recovering for a bit.
Yeah, it's always expensive to get paid to travel.
Yeah, my wife is speaking in Chicago for Women of Color Beyond Belief in October, so I will be up there with her. And then I'm speaking in Orlando in November for Free Flow.
Excellent. I actually plan on being at both of those events.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I'm actually a big sponsor of the Chicago conference, Women of Color Beyond Belief.
Outstanding. Excellent.
Yeah. Free Flow, we're just going to go hang and party.
Yeah, because that's Florida.
Yeah, it's Florida, and we were down there earlier this year, but we went on their Cuba cruise. Well, it wasn't a cruise. Well, it was a cruise, but we weren't tourists in Cuba. We were people engaged in person-to-person peer exchange because Cuba didn't have tourism, so you had to go. Oh, it's peer-to-peer cultural exchange. Yeah, so we went on peer-to-peer cultural exchanges.
Okay,
it wasn't tourism, but then
my wife and I are both booked to speak on the Free Thought cruise in March.
I'm aware,
which is on a magnificent ship. They booked 70 rooms exclusively to free thinkers, and I think they have just a handful of rooms left. But if you Google Free Thought cruise, that'll get you in touch with it. And they have rooms for like $600. And this is for a week in the Caribbean. Yeah. And it goes from Miami to to Jamaica, to the Cayman Islands, to Cozumel, Mexico, then back around Cuba to the Bahamas, and then back to Miami. So that's going to be a week at sea in the Caribbean, and it looks like a really good time.
And my wife and I are tempted to go on that again. Of course, the temptation increases because you will be there. But we were on the one last year, like I said, with Cuba and Dillahunty, and we just weren't the biggest fans of a cruise. It just doesn't seem to be our thing. So we'll contemplate that.
Yeah, this one is a different ship.
I know.
Than the one you went on, and this one is it's bigger than some towns I've been to.
Well,
I mean,
the ship we were on was bigger than many towns that I've been to, and they claimed it was the smallest one in their fleet because it was the only one that could fit in a Cuban port.
Wow. So that's phenomenal. They should look up Free Thought Cruise and look up the ship that we're talking about. I can't remember the name of the ship right now, but it is. If you just look at the video on this ship. This is amazing. And it's got amusement parks and theaters and 5-star, seven 5-star restaurants on this ship. It is enormous.
So listeners, there's obviously lots of things you can go and do and join your fellow skeptics, humanists, freethinkers, atheists. Just do a little Googling or keep listening to the show. And if you go to something like Chicago, you can see Aron. If you go to Florida, you can see Aron. He's everywhere. I thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate the efforts that you have made over many, many years helping to educate many people, including eventually some creationists who stumble across your stuff, scoffing, and get an education. And I know
I do get thank you mails.
Yep,
quite often. So from former believers.
Yeah, I've had a few people come to me and say that they've lost their religion or left religion or become atheists, and that I was part of that process, and I am humbled and honored at every time. I can only imagine how many people that you have assisted in that progress, and I thank you for it.
I'm glad you put it that way, because I always felt a little weird saying that I was humbled and honored at the same time, but that is in fact what it is.
Yeah, it's a very cool and weird feeling all at the same time. So Aron Ra, everybody, go check out his videos, go check out his Patreon page, go become a patron, donate some money. PhylogonyExplorerProject.com. Maybe you can help out. Maybe you can find him a very fancy smancy scientist that can get this thing up on its legs and find real money.
Outstanding. Thank you,
I appreciate your time very much.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
It's time to wrap up the show, and I do thank you so much for listening. And I have one little thing I want to talk about. Maybe a few of you can help me with this. I'm looking at buying a new desktop computer. I have two, and I run 3 monitors. I don't know if I want one that's a beast enough to run all 3 monitors. It's okay, because one of my desktop computers is 2 years old, but the other one is about 5, and it's getting slow, and sure, I could reformat the hard drive and start all over from beginning, but that will take a good part of a day. Plus, I think I just want a newer machine, but I don't know exactly what I should get. So I'm opening it for suggestions. Now, keep in mind, all the Apple fans, wonderful machines, got no problem with them. I do not want to buy an Apple. So I'll ask you in advance to please not contact me and say you should get a Macintosh or an Apple or whatever the proper way to say it is. Thank you very much. I appreciate your interest and concern, but I'm going to get a Windows-based machine. That's what I know. I'm not going to change everything now. So I want a Windows-based machine. And the thing that I really want, the most important thing is I think I want, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I want a solid-state drive that's 1 terabyte in size. The one I bought 2 years ago was 0.5 terabyte, and it's not quite big enough to hold everything, so some stuff I have to put on the hard disk drive, but the solid-state drive is way faster, way cooler, saves me some time saving audio files like for the show. So that's my first thing is I want a terabyte solid-state drive, and then after that I want a really good independent, I think, video card, video chipset, something like that, because I often watch YouTube videos, Italian TV shows, and or just regular TV, and some games. So the built-in chipset on my old computer is getting a little glitchy, so I don't want to have that problem. After that, I'm open for suggestions. I don't know if I want the brand new i3 chipset, or if I want to go crazy and spend a fortune on i9s, or if I should get an ADM chipset. That's where I'm looking for your suggestions. What chipset should I have? How much RAM do I need? And we don't want to get too carried away, but I know I'm not going to be getting a $300 machine with these specs, but we don't want to get too nutty. How much do you think I need? So if you have some experience and expertise in computers and thoughts on that, send me an email, or if you have a link to a specific machine you think would meet all of those things that I just described, feel free to send it to me, phil@PolarisFinancialPlanning.com. And of course, now the show is way too long. I didn't even look to see if there's reviews. I'll try to get that to the next show. If you did leave me a review, thank you. And I'm going to go back to work. Or actually, I'm going to have to go edit the whole show. You won't even know about that. I'm going to edit the whole show, put it out for you. And I do thank you so much for listening. And I do hope to see you at an upcoming conference. Until then, ciao.
Well, I was born too late to play in the Rolling Stones. I don't know Jimmy Page, I never met Yoko Ono. Standing chance, 'cause I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, I'm not dead yet. I've been machine gun, handgun, hijack, left for dead. Dive bomb, napalm, nuclear warheaded. Drop from a jet plane with no parachute. Shot by a firing squad and raped by a business suit. Dancing on a landmine, one leg left. I can still crawl and I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, I'm not dead yet. Well, you're bigger, rougher, meaner, tougher, dirty